nod when we're ready to roll, if you would. Or Madam Clerk, you, if you're watching the
I
clock.
forgot my phone, so she's doing it
I
for
got
me.
you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start our meeting here today. Terry, can I ask you to give our invocation?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Our Heavenly Father, we come to you with thankful hearts for the life you've given us. Lord, we pray a special prayer for the people in Texas that have been hit by the hurricane this week. We ask that you guide them through this so that maybe they'll be a little better off than they were before. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Terry. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Terry. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
I will. Mr. Hall.
Here.
Ms. Hutto's absent. Mr. Merritt.
Here.
Mr. Stryker.
Here.
Chairman Riga.
Here, thank you. I know we got the minutes a little bit late. Did everybody get an opportunity to kind of
I did.
review them?
Best I could, I did.
Outstanding, very good. Can I ask then for either a motion or any changes or
I make a motion that we approve the minutes
accept
written.
as is? Okay, do I get a second?
My second.
Captain Hall accepted. Madam Clerk, if you'll take that vote, please.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Ms. Hutto noted as absent. Mr. Merritt.
Yes.
Mr. Stryker.
Yes.
Chairman Riga.
Yes, thank you. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda that anybody wishes to put on? Okay, I'm going to put one on then. At the very end, as commissioners, one of our goals is to annually review the comprehensive plan for any kind of conflicts that may exist. So we'll have that discussion. That'll be the last thing we discuss. So what we're going to try and do is kind of segment it so that we don't have to do it all at once. Take a gap of maybe 15, 20 pages to review all of us, to review for those things that we need to make sure that there are no conflicts with the LDR. We'll do that last, okay? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being interested in what we do here in the city. It is our goal as commissioners to get as much input as possible so that we can help sculpt our city in our light. So thank you for that interest. Our agenda today is we've got a couple of partial splits that we'll be covering. We're going to come to consensus over how we're going to deal with billboards in the city and then pass those recommendations along to our council members for their review. We're going to have an election today for both our chair and our vice chair, and then we're going to have a public hearing. The public hearing is going to be on ordinances relating to some additions to the LDR and then also a comprehensive plan amendment. Are there any items from the audience that are not on this list as that things that we're going to be discussing? All right, then let's get right with it. I don't see Mr. Johnson here today. I guess, has everybody had a chance to look at item one? That is it's a split on East 2nd Street. Let me just give everybody kind of the review. So it's actually not just a split, it's a combination and then a split. It looks to me as though we've got lot 36 and lot 37. Lot 36 has like a dog leg to the right, and right now it sits at just a little bit below a single acre. And then lot 37 looks like it's currently a half of an acre, and it will be gaining about a third of an acre when it is added. So that'll be the first component. That will be a lot combination. And if we flip over to the next page, we have the new lot 36 and new lot 37. Lot 36 will be about 0.7 acres, and then lot 37 will be 0.79 acres. What Mr. Johnson is requesting is the combination and then the lot split. If we then look at what lot 36 will look like, lot 36 will then end up being 0.34 acres because he's gonna split it right down the middle. So he'll have two parcels there that will be 0.34 acres, or approximately just a grunt over a third of an acre. And then lot 37 is gonna be, it's gonna start with that, it's gonna end up being split also right down the middle after the combination, the component that came from lot 36, and it's gonna end up being 0.39 and 0.39. Each of them are gonna face the roadway. Each of them are gonna get water, sewer, and all of the utilities that are anticipated off of East Second Street. As we know, they meet the density rules. They need to have at least, 5 per acre. In this case, we have to make sure at least it's 0.2. And in each of those cases, it meets that requirement. Do you have any comments from anybody?
Is this in any way a way to skirt around the development rule?
Before it goes into subdivision?
Right.
I looked that over, and I'm gonna have to resort to Mr. Sloan, but I think it's not. Let me tell you
Okay.
why.
Okay.
Because the rule is that if you take a single parcel of land, and then what you do is you split it 3, then
Right.
it becomes, he's
Then it's a
taking
development.
a parcel and splitting it, and taking another parcel and splitting it. And so I looked that over and I read that section on the subdivision, and good question, you and I had exactly the same thought. He is gonna end up with 4 parcels, but it's, and I started going through the reasoning in my own mind, what would be the difference of if he came before us today and split 1 parcel, and then a month from now split another parcel? Technically, it's not a subdivision. Everything is facing the street, and it's not a single parcel being divided 3 ways. It's a single parcel and then another single parcel.
What says Mr. Sloan on that?
Well, normally you don't see the combination first, but I think what the chair is talking about is that, that they are 2 separate parcels, the way that they would be identified.
Okay.
Now, are these individual lots based upon a plat, or are these just, we're calling them lots by virtue of something else?
He's got the parent plat already identified here, and right now, the way it looks is, if you look at lot number 36, Mr. Sloan, it's actually almost a full acre. And what it does is it kind of takes a dog leg onto the backside of lot 37. So the very first component there is that he's combining that, a piece of 36 to become 37.
Right, I understand what he's doing, but I just didn't know if they were platted lots that way, or somehow over the course of time, people have deeded off that extra little piece over that sits, I'll say, below the original lot
37, I see.
That's what I did not know. But the point of your statement, Mr. Chair, is that when you're taking an individual parcel and you're splitting it in 2 or less pieces, then it does not require plat.
Yeah.
If you all were to determine what he's really doing is splitting a single parcel into 4 pieces, then that would be a different story. Then that would require a plat.
I think when we
Yeah.
rewrote the land development rules, I think we identified it as taking a parcel of land and splitting it just twice. You wouldn't have to plat it.
Correct.
If you did it 3 times, you would have to, and then we would actually at that point begin looking at it as a subdivision. And I tried to figure out if the same thing, Terry, so I
Yeah,
know
I just wanna
exactly
make
where
sure
you're
we're
coming
doing the
from.
right thing, that's all.
I reached out to Elizabeth Moore in Anchor, and she had no problem with it.
Yeah, thank you. That's good to know. So it meets it both in terms of density as well as neither one of these things is gonna be smaller than 7,500 square feet. They're both gonna be significantly all four of them will be significantly larger than that, actually. To be honest with you, if he wanted to, he really would have enough land to put another couple of homes in that same area. But he's really gonna take those two areas and just build, 4 homes. So what I'll look for is a motion for item 1, for the lot combination and land split. Either approval with conditions, or denial
And that's a recommendation to the council.
to the council.
Make that motion that we recommend this to the council.
Very good. Thank you, Terry. Do I have a second? Very good. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it. Madam Clerk, can we get a vote on Mr. Johnson's two splits, combination and splits?
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Merritt?
Yes.
Mr. Striker?
Yes.
Chairman Riga?
Yes, thank you. Now, do we also not have a Mr. Bailiff here? Right? Okay. Well, this one is similar kind of a situation, only it's just a parcel of land. And the parcel of land starts as .516 acres. Okay? And it's on Lake Drive. And what Mr. Bailiff is wanting to do is he's wanting to run a driveway, it looks like, up the left side of the property so that it actually can have access to the roadway there. That would be off of Lake Drive. And it looks to me, the print was so small, it looks as though the split piece of property is gonna end up being .318 acres. Now, that's gonna leave .198 acres for the home that's already there. But believe it or not, that is okay based on the land development rules. Because the land development rules, from a density standpoint, as long as you don't have, you're starting with at least .4 acres, you can split it. But one of those lots can be as little as 7,500 square feet. This is significantly more than that. The lot where the home is gonna remain is gonna end up being 8,624 square feet. That is allowed under the land development rules.
My only concern when I looked at it is the driveway gonna be substantial enough to get emergency equipment down?
He's got 33 feet there, Terry,
Okay.
from the, I looked at,
So,
you and I are thinking exactly the same way. He's got from the back of his one building, which will be, actually not the back, from the side of his building to his property line, he's got 33 feet where they're gonna run the driveway
Okay.
up. And I think an average driveway is 9 feet wide.
right, that was my only worry, cause the only other way is through the lock gate into the retention pond, right? It's land, it is?
I don't have the whole schematic, but
Yeah,
I
I know.
think this is a landlocked once you,
Wasn't there a drive to the
It looks
retention
like it.
pond back there?
there's probably an easement. I'd have to look at
Oh,
that.
okay, okay. I couldn't tell from the map, really. So that was my only apprehension on that one.
The size?
So just to clarify, so he's really establishing the lot with the house already on it, and then the second lot that he's splitting off would include the driveway section.
Yes, sir. It looks to me like, here's what he's gonna do. If we look at, I don't know all this stuff that you received. So this will be the parcel that is split off, and then this will be a driveway up to Lake Drive.
But it's included in this second parcel.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the driveway will be part of, yeah, he's got,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So if anybody has any questions, or should we open this up for some more discussion, or what's your thoughts, guys? Okay.
I'm good with it.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Okay, so
let
make a
me
motion
ask
then.
our planner, any concerns, Jamie?
No, not as the planner. I don't.
Okay, okay. All right, very good. Well, then I'll ask for a motion.
You wanna make one?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we approve this to the council.
Very good. Second. Madam Clerk, can we get a vote, please?
You can. Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Merritt,
Yes.
Mr. Striker,
Yes.
Chairman Ranger.
Yes. Just one thing I did notice is these, on this sheet right here that you gave us, these are our council members. so
Yeah, I just saw that.
No worries. As long as we get that corrected on the one that actually goes to them. Okay, very good. All right.
That's what this is for right here.
Outstanding. Okay. Okay, guys. Several months ago, Mr. Libby brought before us a concern regarding billboards in the sector that generally goes from Tyndall Bridge all the way to the end of Parker. And I'm trusting that everybody got a chance to review what the current rules are. There's segmentation between each of them. They have to be so many feet from schools and from highway traffic lights and things of that nature. But I think the concern at that time was there had been a mistake, and somehow there was going to end up being two billboards too close to each other. It was just one of those things where one hand didn't always know what the other was going to do. So it brought this whole thing to fruition. What ended up happening was, as we started reviewing this, and some of the commissioners at that time came to the conclusion that maybe we should review this thing because there are certain states which have completely outlawed billboards. And let me just kind of give you some of the information that I've gotten. So there actually is state law which is looking at billboards as unsightly and potentially hazardous to people. Here's what they say: the control of signs in areas adjacent to the highways in the state of Florida, is declared to be necessary to protect the public investment in the state highways, to attract visitors to the state by conserving the natural beauty of the state, to preserve and promote the recreational value of public travel, and they talk about safety and the aesthetic nature of an area. The states that have completely outlawed billboards are Maine, Vermont, Alaska, and Hawaii. And interesting enough, back in 1965, they brought about a federal bill called the Beautification Act, and it was actually kind of given a secondary term called the Lady Bird Bill, because Johnson's wife was they called her Lady Bird, and she was big into promoting the beautification of America, and that including our highways. In some of those paragraphs, when you read this bill, the Beautification Act, they talk not only about the elimination of billboards. Now that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the potential to eliminate future billboards. I wouldn't want to do anything that would request that those that are already in place have to come down. I'm just not there. But anyway, they do talk about billboards in the same light as they talk about removing junkyards along the highways for the beautification of the areas, and also putting screens up against those dilapidated areas. Like I say, the 4 states that have already entirely removed billboards from being built are the Alaska, Hawaii, Maine, and Vermont. And those states refer to the reasons for that as scenic conservation, fighting blight, visual pollution, protecting the beauty. They say beauty is good for business, and they've got all kinds of studies which identify that, and that it builds the community character and creates a sense of place. Now, even the state of Florida has corridors that they completely eliminated billboards, particularly if you're going down to real nice places, like Naples and things of that nature. And I don't believe that Parker can't someday be, thought of in that same light. When you look at case law, there is a bunch of it, and I will just kind of give you some of the highlights. There was one in particular, it's called Metro Media versus the City of San Diego. And, you know, their final judgment on that was that an individual that owns a piece of property that wants to put a sign on their property and wants to advertise their own goods and services, that is taboo. We shouldn't be screwing with that. That's literally what that particular case showed. It says, however, they cannot, they should not be promoting and advertising others. That's the off-premise sign part. And that's actually called Metro Media versus the City of San Diego. And there's several that were here. I'll pass that around if you're interested. But it specifically refers to billboard laws and regulation. The reason I mention that is because there was some thought that we attack perhaps more than just the billboards, that we maybe rewrite all of the rules regarding signage. And I would tell you, when you get there, you really get into that Personal Property Protection Act, which is really coming back to light and having more presence. The courts have ultimately said, if it's your property, you can have, you can advertise your business, your goods, your services. But if it's an off-premise sign and you want to rent it so that a large billboard can be put up, that's where they're supporting these states which have said we don't want that, like Alaska and Hawaii and Vermont and Maine and other parts of Florida, for example. So long and short of it is, the research I've done, and I'm happy to, actually I think I emailed a bunch of this stuff to you guys, so hopefully you got a chance to, or the clerk emailed all of this stuff to you. So hopefully you got a chance to review what the state has said, what the feds have said, and it makes more and more sense if we read this Highway Beautification Act, what the concept is and what they're trying to accomplish. So let's have some discussion.
I never thought about this. We've talked about this before. I never thought about this until it was brought up here.
Right.
Then the next couple months while I was driving around, I'd look at billboards, think about billboards.
Yeah.
There was a time that they were good. You know, back when my Model T was new, they were good. They told you where to go.
Right.
But now these things that come along and the GPS in your car, you don't need them.
Terry, I think that's a very, very astute thought, and here's why. When you go into the research here, what they talk about is the concept that billboards might be outdated because of the social media platforms, because of the electronics, because of everybody's got a TV these days. There are better ways to advertise.
They do nothing for our city, for the people in the city, except the one or two people that own the property that billboard's put on.
Right.
I'd
Right.
say do away with them.
I'll tell you from my perspective, billboards and signs are something that I've looked at for a long time. I have a history in planning and even emergency preparedness. And from that aspect of emergency preparedness, there are a lot of signs, a lot of billboards, a lot of placement of those signs that are in the way of being able to see the road properly, being in the way of just being in the way of able to. It's just blocking your view. So if you look at Destin, if you look at other communities that are known to be very nice, they have signage rules of how a McDonald's sign can be, how high off the ground it is, how far it's set back, and I know that we have that too, but to a different level than what we have it. And I would love to go and look at that. And of course, people already have signs or grandfathered in or whatever, however we would want to do that, because it's a lot to replace a sign. But definitely for as new businesses come in, as Parker continues the growth and on the growth track that it is, to really spell that out about what signs will look like, billboards and signage, I think is important for us to undertake.
Very good. Captain, any thoughts?
No, I agree. I'm with Kyle. I think we would look at other areas that we want to mirror, what they're doing, and Destin was a good example, because I lived there 4 years before coming here. So
Absolutely
It's
agree.
much nicer, the roadway. And
you don't
visual
realize it
feel.
until you drive through there and realize that they're pretty much, they've kind of curtailed the signage.
Well, and that, Mr. Chair, is really what the Florida cases are looking at is what is the vision for the city? Is the vision to clean up the appearance of the city, to beautify the access into the city. Of course, Tyndall Parkway being the gateway into Tyndall Air Force Base. You know, for you all to decide what that should look like and how it should be presented. You certainly would be able to evaluate whether or not you want off-premise signs as a part of that when you're driving down that segment. And of course, that segment, as well as north of there, is all in a community redevelopment area. And again, 98 is also Business 98. So, you know, if the vision that you have and the one you recommend to the city council is to have a picturesque access into the city and into Tyndall Air Force Base, then what you're discussing could be appropriate for that.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that everybody knows that the state and the feds have very specific rules that they have the opportunity to put up information signs, which may look like billboards, but they're just going to be large signs to direct you to Tyndall Air Force Base.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about off-premise commercial advertising signs. And we certainly don't want to get in the way of the state or but it would really just be related to off-premise commercial advertising signs.
Does it even need to be addressed anywhere that, like Frank's Pizza can't have a sign that says Frank's Pizza says to shop at Walmart?
Well, these are off-premise, so this would be
Yeah.
somebody else putting a sign on your property,
Right. And
not you putting a sign on your property.
Yeah, and that was that one court case too,
Yeah.
Terry, that
Right, that's what I thought.
that Metro
said.
Media versus San
Yeah.
Diego. The courts came down hard and said that Frank's Pizza has an absolute right to continue to put there, because they went into First Amendment rights stuff. And for some reason, when you're doing it for the purpose of commerce, for the benefit of a rental or something, it somehow interferes with your First Amendment right. So you have the right to continue to advance your own interests, your own pizzas, your own products
Right.
for that property, but not
But
to do
not
it for
someone
others.
else's.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I don't see
So-
that happening, but it's.
So right now, what we have is we have a moratorium that has been in existence since the Planning Commission asked for the 6-month moratorium against billboards. That's in place right now. And I think it's coming up I think it's coming to the end. So what I'll look for
It may have already.
I think it's 10 days.
in 10 days, okay.
10 days.
So what I'll look for is a motion in order to change the rules that we have right
Yeah.
now, eliminating billboards from Parker in the future for the reasons that we discussed: beautification, safety, things of that nature. And
Can I speak about something on that?
y-
Just a suggestion?
absolutely, Paul, please.
So, I used to work at the FCC, and we had.
Paul, can you just give me your
Oh,
address?
Paul Palmer,
That-
1135 West Street,
Thank you.
Parker. So as I'm hearing this conversation, and I'm thinking about our area, which is plagued by natural disasters and the other types of things, something similar occurred when I was in charge of FM broadcasting, and that was and it had to do with advertising, and so many advertisements were public service type of advertisements, then you had sort of a right to continue to do it. I'm sort of mixing two medias, but I'm thinking in terms of some of these electronic billboards, which have the ability during a crisis to present another message. Sometimes they're presenting this person's, a missing child type of thing. So possibly we may want to think about if these are those particularly the electronic billboards. It doesn't apply to anything else because it's not a fast response. That possibly if they also provide some type of public service that they would be allowed to continue. Just a random thought.
Good thought. Now, they do segment that out too, Paul. They already do. The state law already does that.
Okay.
They talk about government or state informational signs. We're not talking about any of that. We're really just talking about the commercial signs that were out there.
Well, these are the commercial signs, but sometimes they're actually displaying non-commercial messages. It's just
Yeah.
like the Fairness Act that was part of the Broadcast Bureau. Again, you understand at least the concept that I'm talking about?
Oh, yes, sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
This would be a prospective application in the LDR, because there would have to be changes to the LDR to implement this, and it would be prospective, so the existing signs
Would remain.
and if they have changeable content and they choose to contract with the state or whoever to provide that kind of informational signage, then they can do that.
Good, very good. Well, so what I'll ask for is a motion based on our discussion. And these would be billboards for commercial, private, off-premise signs to maintain, to eliminate them from the future from being erected in the city of Parker.
I'll make a motion to eliminate billboards in the city of Parker from being erected going forward.
And, absolutely.
And that's a
Excellent.
recommendation to the
That's
council.
very good. So I have a motion on the floor to eliminate future billboards, nothing withstanding the current billboards which are already erected. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Very good. Madam Clerk, can we get a vote, please?
Mr. Sloan, do I need to stipulate that those are off-premise within the motion?
Yeah, it's an
Absolutely.
Okay.
off-premise signage.
And off-premise commercial signs.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Merritt,
Yes.
Mr. Stryker,
Yes.
Chairman Riga.
Yes, and thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your research on that as well, and for giving it some good thought. All right, very good. Okay, so we're at this point now where we're going to have a little election here. I think I'd mentioned to you at the last meeting, I'm willing to go ahead and be your chair for the next year if that's what you want. Or certainly feel free to go ahead and nominate somebody else. It's
I'd like to nominate
entirely.
Mark Reagan as chair.
I'll second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Madam Clerk, can we get a vote, please?
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Merritt,
Yes.
Mr. Stryker,
Heck, yes.
Chairman Riga.
I don't know. No, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your confidence,
And I
gentlemen.
would like to
appreciate it
make
very much.
note, since the vote has passed, that although Ms. Hutto could not be here, she called me to make sure that I told you that her vote would have been for Mr. Riga as
Oh,
well.
well, thank you very much. Okay. Now, we need a vice chair. And Terry asked a very good question, just as we started the meeting. He wanted to know if we could nominate somebody who wasn't here. So apparently, if your wish was to select Bev as the vice chair, that's an option for you. So I'll ask for a nomination for the vice chair.
I'll nominate Ms. Hutto for vice chair.
Very nice. Very nice, Terry. Can I get a second, please?
I second it.
Outstanding. Can we get a vote? Or can we get a,
Yes, Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Merritt,
Yes.
Mr. Stryker,
Yes.
Chairman Riga.
yes, thank you. Thank you, guys, appreciate it. Okay, very good.
Can you deliver that message to her this evening?
Oh, very good.
He
Oh,
doesn't look
Chief,
very happy about it.
congratulations to you. Okay, very good.
That's what I said.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we're going to migrate towards a public hearing. Now, this is going to be a public hearing where you will not be sworn in, but we have some additions to both the LDR as well as the comprehensive plan. We're going to have a little discussion here. After, we're going to hit the LDR amendments first, and then you'll have an opportunity to comment, okay? And then we'll go to the comprehensive plan. So what we have here, item 5, we have 3 items in relationship. Oh, Mr. Sloan, did you want me to handle this, or?
You can handle
Okay,
it.
very good. We have 3 items here. The first one is designed to keep larger trucks from making deliveries off of these local roadways or streets. And it has to do with the new, or the addition of light manufacturing. I'm going to read it directly. It says, in any sub-area of the CRA, the property must have direct vehicular access to a state or federal road or highway without the use of any city streets for deliveries by vehicles having more than 4 axles, such as deliveries of raw materials or finished products. Any discussion, gentlemen? That is, so it's very specific to manufacturing, light manufacturing, and particularly in a CRA, what the change is looking for is that for these larger vehicles, primarily, you know, your 18-wheelers, this will be a mechanism for keeping them off of the, you know, your local streets, okay? They must have access from off of a state road or a major artery.
Just a question, so if someone is getting a delivery for local, let's say their whole living room set, are they not going to be able to get that delivered to their house anymore?
This is related to this is related to a business.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, you have a business and they're getting regular deliveries. No, I mean, if FedEx or UPS has a larger truck and they still want to deliver that couch to your house, this would not have any play there.
I mean, I bought a generator the other day that came on a very large truck.
Yes,
And
sir.
so would that mean that I wouldn't be able to have?
No, it would have absolutely no. It's only talking about with relationship to light manufacturing.
Okay.
If you had a company that made generators
Okay.
and got the parts in, that might be
Right.
more fitting.
But good question, Kyle, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So that is the proposed, that is the first one. There's 3, and this all, by the way, is under conditional uses. All right, any further discussion from our commissioners? Then I'll ask the public for any of their comments regarding this particular one.
Are you gonna open the public hearing now?
Yes, ma'am, thank you for that, appreciate that. Opening the public hearing now. Paul, please.
So, I'm addressing the ordinance incomplete, okay, and I object to the proposed ordinance 2024-421 because I believe it is improper to change the city's land use regulations to benefit one property owner. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Jeanette Howard, 1123 East Park Street. The question I have is, we're revising an ordinance that was just written recently, correct? We just wrote this light manufacturing ordinance, and we're revising it to state that we don't want vehicles in the sub-area of the CRA with more than 4 axles. Why?
Those are the larger trucks.
Right, okay, so those are the trucks, dump trucks, cement trucks, but my question is, do you want those cement trucks, heavy haul trucks, logging trucks, tankers, specialized transport vehicles, all of which are greater than 4 axles, do you want them in non-CRA areas?
Well, if we're talking about like an 18-wheeler, a lot of your dump trucks are not like that.
Yeah,
They don't
so,
have
sir,
the 4
let me-
axles or more.
I want to just explain what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Is this paragraph says that if you are special and you are in a sub-area of the CRA, these trucks are not allowed. My question is, if you're not special and you're not in a CRA, the trucks can just come down your street and deliver to a light manufacturing business. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I could,
Please do.
first of all, this is under conditional uses. The original language was very broad in its approach. The sub-areas of the CRA essentially encompass Tyndall Parkway and US Business 98 out here. There is a little bit up north of the city that would also be off of, I think it's Cherry Street. So the gist of this language would be that if there was a commercial land use, and if light manufacturing was considered as a part of that commercial land use, then this would apply. However, there's not a lot of commercial land use in other areas.
Not
So-
a lot, not a lot. I ask you to make sure there aren't any. I mean, we're taking the time to add a sentence, the sentence being by vehicles having more than 4 axles. We could also take the time and say, we want all of Parker to not have these huge trucks in the neighborhoods. We could get rid of in any sub area of the CRA and say, in all areas of Parker, we don't want those trucks.
Thank you,
Just a
Jeanette.
recommendation.
Appreciate those comments. Any thoughts, guys, about what Ms. Howard has just identified? Yes, ma'am, please. Well, tell you what, let me just ask these fellows here, any comments about that? Does that need to be revised, reworded? Does it meet the original intent? The goal was, if you've got a light manufacturing business and you've got a lot of deliveries, and it happens to be in a CRA, which is an area we're trying to protect, then ultimately, we want those larger trucks to have direct access off of a major highway, and I think that's the original intent. Yes, ma'am, please.
Kim King,
Hey,
4716 East Sixth Street. My question would apply to Business 98 out here. If
Yes,
a
ma'am.
business owner wanted to put a business in and did light manufacturing, or didn't do light manufacturing, just had supplies brought in,
Mhm.
would it be acceptable then for them in the CRA to enter off of 98, circle back out onto 98 to exit that property? Or would that fall under some sort of banning because it's not considered residential, it's a CRA?
Well, right
I
now.
don't think anybody's gonna put a light manufacturing business in a residential district, that's why I'm asking about
It
98,
would only
because
be
that would be a business
conditional
highway.
use within commercial land use, so.
Yeah, and that was, Kim, that's exactly, so the concept is that light manufacturing is conditional use already.
Mhm.
So anything would have to come before the planning commission, and then we would look at ingress and egress, just as we did with anything else.
Okay,
So it would be sort of a one-off, and we would absolutely consider it.
I'm not for banning them in all of Parker, because I think there's too many big vehicles that travel through our area to get to other destinations.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
don't think that would be beneficial for the city to ban them totally in Parker.
I agree with you, and especially, if you're in a situation like Kyle was bringing up, where you just want common deliveries or things.
Yeah.
The good news is it doesn't happen often. What we're trying to do is deal with the high frequency of it as a result of owning a business where you would get regular deliveries. And I
But
think
even with the
that's-
concrete plant that just bought property over here in
ma'am.
Springfield, they're gonna have traffic coming up
Yeah,
98.
yeah, that's
That's gonna be-
exactly right. Yeah.
We don't
So-
have much control on
Yeah,
that.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, that's another city, so
State-
we don't have
state
any
road,
really, any
yeah.
control on that. They would have to drive completely around the city if there was some sort of ban on
Don't
those type of
Exactly.
vehicles.
do
That's
that
exactly
with the
right.
state highway, can
No, that's
they?
a federal highway,
A federal, I'm sorry.
isn't it?
Yep,
I think.
Okay,
And this applies to any light manufacturing that would be in a commercial area.
yeah, okay. Just wanted clarification on that to see. Thank you.
okay, very good, very good. Yes, ma'am, please.
Can I just have a real tap?
Sure.
I just thought, this ordinance was written for, we know what, right? We know what this was written for, right? Okay, so there are 4 lots that this was written for in Parker, near the cemetery. One of those lots is not in the CRA. Okay?
Thank you for that.
The southernmost lot is not in the CRA.
Appreciate that, thank you. Very good. All right.
You wanna close the public hearing?
On that particular one, or so
Well-
each one we handle individually?
Well.
Yes?
I thought you were handling all of them at one time.
Okay.
But I think they were speaking to all of the issues, but
Very good.
however you wanna do it, Mr. Chair.
You know what, we'll close it, and then we'll vote on it, we'll vote on them individually, I think that might be a little cleaner. Okay, very good. So, as written, in the sub-area of the CRA, the property must have direct vehicular access to a state or federal road or highway without the use of any city streets for deliveries by vehicles having more than 4 axles, such as deliveries of raw materials or finished products. Again, the concept there is, if you've got a business and it happens to be a light manufacturing business, the concept is to keep the larger trucks, which are your 18-wheelers, off of those style streets. So what I'll ask is for a motion.
Well, Mr. Chair, what you're gonna end up with is either a motion to recommend this proposed ordinance to the city council. I mean, you're welcome to
Oh, sure.
do individual votes, but at the end of the day,
You wanna-
the entirety is
Entirety of it?
what you need to look at.
Okay, very good. We'll do it that way then. So the second one then has to do with square footage. Okay, so the total enclosed area of all structures within all properties associated with the light manufacturing business may not exceed 30,000 square feet. The concept there is to limit the overall size of light manufacturing. And you might be interested, if you go to the EIA, the U.S. Energy Information Administration, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Some of you may have remembered that Council Member Ms. Barrows identified 30,000 square feet because it was an arbitrary number. Well, I tried to determine if that was something specific, or if what kind of meaning that had. Turns out, if you go to the Energy Information Administration, the EIA, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they see any large manufacturing is 100,000 square feet. They call them manufacturing, or possibly inclusive of a storage or warehouse over 100,000 square feet. And then at the low end, they say 30,000 square feet, and that's the number they use, 30,000 square feet. So when we first came to the 22.5, there was no real science behind that.
No, it was
But now we've got 2 federal Bureau of Labor Statistics and the U.S. Energy Information Administration actually using that number to define small. So I think it makes sense now. And actually we have some science behind it. So are there any thoughts regarding that? I'll open the public meeting for comments on that. Do we have any comments on the size of the small manufacturing? Very good. I'll shut that piece down. Okay, and then the last one has to do with parking. Okay, so for light manufacturing parking in the city of Parker, we do have the concerns regarding flooding. And we also have the concerns regarding having the appropriate number of spaces for whatever type business it may be. The rewrite is 0.8 spaces per 1,000 square feet for light manufacturing. Okay, and all of the other rules still shall apply, that all employees or patrons must have off-street parking for any business that exists. And in fact, the only time that you can have on-street parking is if you've got circumstances where, or there's no on-street parking actually, but if you're a business with more than 25 persons or more, you can actually have an additional parking area for your employees or for your patrons, as long as it's on the same side of the street and at least within 500 feet of the business. That's not a rewrite, that's already in the LDRs. The change here has to do with 0.8 spaces per 1,000 square feet.
I would remind the chair that when this first came up, you actually spoke to correct the numbers that were being proposed, because at the time you felt that they were not commensurate with the land use. So
Thank you, Mr. Sloan, that's exactly right. We had a discussion over that, and let's remember that you can actually diminish the number of spaces. In some places, some businesses do, based on, for example, if they might be a business that it has nursing, and maybe they've got 2 shifts. So you don't have all the employees. So you may have 200 employees, but only 70 of them are there at a time. So there are provisions already in other LDRs where the type of business or the number of people that you have makes sense, because they have similar issues as we do. You know, we have flooding issues here, so you don't want to have a mountain of concrete or blacktop if you can avoid it, because you want rainwater and things of that nature to be able to have a place to go. So I'm going to open up the public meeting for anybody who wants to discuss the parking spaces. That's the third and final one in the LDRs. So once again, there were 3. The first one had to do with the vehicular traffic in terms of where they had to have egress and ingress. The second one had to do with the size of the building. We actually started to make some sense on that. And then the last one has to do with the number of parking spaces per 1,000 square foot of building. Anybody want to come to the podium and talk on that? Okay, I'll shut the public meeting. All right, Mr. Sloan, I'll ask for your direction then. That was item 5 for the ordinances that would go into, that we would recommend to the council members.
So the question for the planning commission would be whether you would pass a motion to recommend to the city council the adoption of ordinance number 2024-421 as written, or with changes, or if you would not recommend it, then the motion would say that.
Very good. So we're going to handle it as a whole. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we propose that they adopt ordinance 2024-421
Very good.
as written.
Excellent, very good. So we have a motion on the floor to adopt ordinance 2024-421, changes to the LDRs. Can I get a second, please?
A second.
Very good. Thank you, Captain. Madam Clerk, can we get a vote?
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Merritt,
Yes.
Mr. Stryker,
Yes.
Chairman Regan.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. Very good. Okay. The item 13 on the list here, item 6 in your packet, has to do with the change to the comprehensive plan. And it is based on the concept that light manufacturing is going to be added to the comprehensive plan, as it was not there prior. It reads this under General Commercial District, GC. This district provides areas for high-intensity commercial development, including retail sales and services, wholesale sales, shopping centers, office complexes, light manufacturing under certain conditions, and other similar land uses. That is the change. Is that?
And if you remember, Mr. Chair, that you all discussed and the council ultimately adopted light manufacturing as just a conditional use within a general commercial land use district. It was not created as any kind of separate land use category. So it's just clarifying that it would be incorporated into the general commercial district in the comp plan itself, just to clarify that.
Very good. Very good. So what we did is we put it into the general commercial because it seemed to make sense to go into that area. I mean, obviously you don't want, there's certain, you want to go ahead and have that style of a business in a commercial area. I think most people came to that conclusion. Yeah. That would be the change to the comprehensive plan.
Yes, sir.
I'll open up the public meeting. Anybody who wishes to have some thoughts on that? Paul, please.
Paul Palmer, 1135 West Street, Parker, Florida.
Yes, sir.
I object to proposed ordinance 2024-422 because I believe it's improper to change the city's comprehensive plan to benefit one property owner. Additionally, I believe the proposed ordinance would result in unintended consequences because light manufacturing would be an authorized use for all properties in the city that are designated as general commercial district.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am, please.
Jeanette Howard, 1123 East Park Street. This paragraph that has been revised in the comp plan, it adds light manufacturing, but it also says uses allowed within this category include, and they added, but are not limited to. So that statement was added, but are not limited to, in regards to uses. So I'm trying to think, what other uses came to mind to have to add that statement?
Good question. Any thoughts, sir?
Yes, sir. The second sentence is giving some additional examples. The first sentence is talking about the actual high-intensity commercial development. So you would have the businesses and shopping centers and light manufacturing. It was clear that the second sentence wasn't intended to limit the first sentence, and that's why I added the additional language there, so that it's clear that both the first sentence and the second sentence indicate what can be located within a general commercial category.
Such as educational uses, public building. I get
Correct.
it. Okay, very good. Educational uses, public buildings and grounds.
Because
and public and
otherwise, there
private,
was some potential inconsistency between the first sentence and the second sentence.
Okay, so no additional uses that we're not thinking of? I mean, let's say some unique, bizarre use comes up and somebody fights the city of Parker and says, well, you did not deny this kind of use.
Well, there are specifics within the land development regulations about the specific uses. What the comp plan is more of a global picture, if you want to think of it that way. And for instance, educational uses. If you read the first sentence, you would not necessarily come to the conclusion that educational uses would be allowed within a general commercial land use district. Whereas by including it in the second sentence, it's clarifying that these additional things can be allowed within a general commercial use. However, the specifics of what will be allowed are set out in the land development regulations.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Anybody else? All right, I'm going to shut down the public meeting. Very good. So what I'm looking for then is the recommendation for either your approval or denial.
This one, Mr. Chair, because it is an amendment to the comprehensive plan, the process will be for you to recommend it to the City Council. The council would then consider it for transmission to the now it's the
State,
Department
right.
of Commerce. They will, and they and some other agencies that would be required to review this will look at it. They will then give any comments back to the city. The city will consider those comments, and if they're appropriate, incorporate those comments. And then at that time, the city would have a final version of the ordinance to consider for adoption. So at this point, you would be recommending consideration of ordinance number 2024-422 to the City Council and ultimate transmission to the Department of Commerce for its comments.
Very good. So pass it to City Council in order to review, and then pass it on to the state and other agencies for their review, so they could then make any appropriate changes or what they believe would be necessary changes, and then it would eventually come back to the City Council. Can I ask for a motion, please?
So make that motion the way Mr. Sloan put it.
Very good.
I'll second.
Very good, very good.
For ordinance 20,
I have a first, I have a
24,
second.
422.
Madam Clerk, can we get a vote, please?
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Merritt,
Yes.
Mr. Striker.
Yes.
Chairman Riga.
Yes, and thank you for your work on that, Mr. Sloan. Appreciate that. Very good. Okay. We're on to the last item, and annually as commissioners, our goal is to, and I know that we're probably going to inject that when it comes back from the council members and from the state and other agencies. But annually, as commissioners, our job is to review the comprehensive plan and really just see if it still makes sense for us. Secondarily, to make sure that there are no conflicts between the LDRs and the comprehensive plan. So what I'd like to do is, it's approximately 100 pages, and I think we were able to kind of nail it down in bites the last time. So ultimately, if it would be, I'm going to ask everybody to review 20 pages, the first 20 pages of the comprehensive plan, against, just look for glaring things that, that are obviously in opposition to the LDRs, and we'll discuss them, the first 20 pages, at our next meeting. We'll put it on the agenda. All right?
Good.
And I will tell you, Mr. Chair, that,
Yes.
FEMA and the state have indicated they would like us to make a couple of very small changes to the floodplain management area, primarily dictated by the date of the flood maps. The new flood maps have a different date than what is currently in the LDR. So that, I'll be working on that as a part of the overall process. But that one may actually go before the total work that you're doing, because it needs to be done, I believe there's a
October.
deadline.
Yeah, I think it's
so we
either
need to-
October 1st or October
So I'm
4th.
hopeful to have that before you all in August, and then you can decide what you want to do with it, hopefully pass it on to the council, and then they can adopt it in August and September,
Outstanding.
and get it before the deadline.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Sloan.
Yes,
So
sir.
what we'll do is we'll review the first 20 pages, and then when we get to the portion regarding FEMA, we'll be hypersensitive to that. And then when we get to the piece where, when this eventually comes back, we'll review that and get that into the comprehensive plan as well.
Which means you guys have to memorize the whole LDR by
Don't be frightened by that.
I wish
It's
there was a
actually,
book on
it's actually
tape,
quite
you know,
obvious and
something
quite
like
simple. Terry, any, yes, ma'am, please.
Jeanette Howard, 1123 East Park Street. Just a question, do other cities write their LDRs and comp plans, or do they hire a professional?
There's no uniform.
I recall hearing that, we should have hired a professional, and so I wonder where that came from.
Well, there was a professional company that wrote the comprehensive plan as a part of the evaluation and appraisal report, which was mandated, I believe, in 2019. And that company did update the comp plan, bringing it forward with the current laws at the time. And then the city asked for bids to write or update the land development regulations, and at the time the bids were higher than the council wanted to accept. So the council tasked this organization to go through in detail, and I think Mr. Chair and the other members did a Herculean job in really going through the finite details of the LDR and making the update. So there are entities that have professionals that consult. There are entities, the big cities have their planning department within the city itself. But the city of Parker doesn't have that luxury for the budget.
So I guess what I'm saying is, we're saying that we're gonna do it on our, we're making the decision that we are going to do it in-house. We're already eliminating the question of whether we wanna hire a company to write our.
Well, the comp plan itself does dictate that it be periodically reviewed, and it's reviewed by this body.
So then when does it come up for, when would it come up for a question of, do we hire a professional to write it?
Well, that would be something to bring to the city council and see if they want to pursue that. But I believe the comp plan has 2 dates in which it talks about January and July, when there should be kind of an overall general review of the comp plan, and that is part of what Mr. Rega is talking about doing.
And just one final comment is, we have Destin, we have Lynn Haven, we have all these other cities with great plans, not just great signs, but great plans. And so if there was any like cross-reference to say, hey, this is how Lynn Haven is doing it, that would be wonderful, I think.
Yeah, we do that regularly. Yeah, I've actually reached out to even Panama City Beach. When, I think you were here when we were talking about, we had 19 different meetings, an average of 2 to 2.5 hours. Much of the language that we adopted, they had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on, and we adopted some of that verbatim because it made really good sense. And then our council members reviewed it and approved it. So we were able to essentially take passages that updated us and made sense from a variety of different places, including Callaway, as a matter of fact.
I just thought of what came to mind. When we rewrote the LDR the last time and we eliminated grandfathering of multifamily homes in residential areas without public input.
Yeah, actually,
that's what I'm reminded of.
let me tell you something. Go do yourself a favor,
Okay.
read page 4 of our comprehensive plan, and then come back to me and tell me if you still offer that same opinion. Page 4, second paragraph. And you will see what these people are charged with. What their goal is, they have to follow those rules. Page 4, second paragraph. Read it and tell me if you still feel the same way.
Okay, so I guess my point is the public review, the public that didn't know that grandfathering was removed from the LDR.
You're
There were,
misciting that.
I think I've
That's-
heard the clerk say there
yeah.
were 19 public meetings at which various parts of the
It's
LDO.
our fault. It's our fault for not coming to the meetings.
Miss
I agree.
Howard,
I agree.
it's, the
I
simple
agree, it's our
reality
fault.
is that they were advertised, they were put out there, we asked people to come to the meetings. We actually got really good input from a lot of different people, mobile home users, RV home users.
But they're all still very surprised right now, right? They're
No,
very
ma'am,
surprised.
many of them.
Gary Brannon, a big player in Parker, who everybody likes.
And it
totally
is,
caught by
it is very
surprise.
likely that you're not gonna reach everybody, but you do what you can in order to do it. And that's why when we advertise on the marquee, when we advertise right here on this billboard, or on this board right here, when we advertise in the newspaper, and then we have public meetings, and then we offer comment, as you are right now. You know, at the end of the day, there's gotta be some individual responsibility. Much of what we adopted was to the betterment. And let me tell you something, you can take it for what it's worth. I know what you're talking about. After that last meeting, the people came out of the woodwork, including past elected officials from the city, telling us that we made the right choice because, paragraph 2, page 4, comprehensive plan. Please read it. I think it will
I
help
think
you.
it's the right, I think it will be the right if it's enforced. So when all these multifamily homes in residential areas give their properties to their children or go to sell it, is Parker going to say you can't sell it as a duplex?
Well, there are some provisions now about consanguinity. So if you review that piece as well, there are provisions for if you sell it to a blood relative where you maintain some of the use features. But listen, we did our best in order to come up with what was right for the vision that the council members thought for our city. We all want the same thing. We all want the same thing. We want to live in a place that's really nice. And paragraph 2 specifically gives these people, when they're talking about low-density residential areas, there are ways that we're supposed to actively seek means in order to have single-family homes in those areas. I mean, that is what that specifically, that's what they're charged with. And that's what we're doing.
Right, and I made this recommendation the last time, but I'll make it again. When you do your review of the comp plan, if you could please do a summary of changes.
Yeah.
A summary of changes and provide it to the public.
Well,
So that if we miss the meeting or.
I kind of feel like we did better than a summary. We offered 3 weeks for people to come and see the final product before it went to the council members. That was after the 19 meetings, after the 11 months of painstakingly reviewing what every other municipality and city thought about how their city could grow the best. That was after all of that, and after several Tuesday morning meetings that lasted until noon, from 9 until noon, sometimes later, where the general public showed up. So, you know, you do what you can in order to make people aware. I'm happy to see more people engaged. One of the things that the council members are supposed to do, and one of the things that the commissioners are supposed to do, is relish the concept to get more input from their people. We advertised, we told people to come, and we got a fair number of people that came to those things. I would say in those 19 meetings, we got hundreds of people. Some of them were well attended, some of them weren't. But we have these workshops, and people come. And you're never going to reach everybody.
Okay.
You're just never
I
going
know,
to reach
but
everybody.
A summary of changes would be easy.
Can I
Summary
ask-
of changes, you know,
can I
one
ask a
page, it's a
question?
1 page, we're gonna change
Yeah.
the following things.
Yeah, and it was, and I agree. And I agreed with you the last time that a summary was kind of a neat thing to do. It would have certainly added to our workload, but hey, that would have been kind of small because we recorded all of that stuff as we were doing it. And we had summary pages and we had then the final product, but appreciate your
All right,
comments.
thank you.
Well,
so
that
much.
was my
appreciate it.
question. When did we start with the YouTube channel? So anybody could know what was discussed. Was that during the LDR process?
Oh, you're talking about, that's a really good point that the Madam Clerk makes, is that everybody has for the last couple of years, if you're interested, now I get it, people are not as technologically inclined as perhaps they should always be, but you can watch every one of these meetings, whether it's our meeting or whether the council meetings, also on YouTube. That's a really good point. So you can see exactly what was said, exactly what the public input was, all of that stuff. But your comment is right, and that is about a summary, because I think we had a summary. But I know what Mr. Sloan had produced was a full document, redlined, showing what those changes were.
Redlining showed the changes.
It showed the changes, and that was the document that was actually given to City Hall here, so that if anybody wanted to come and review it, they could. And I don't know if it actually went electronic. Jamie, you might know that at the time, but there were documents that people could come and view with the red line changes. Yeah, but I get it. A summary would have been sort of nicer. So I get it. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
Chairman, I thought you brought summary notes of what we changed.
I thought I saw summary
Each time
notes.
You would say, here's what we
Mr.
talked
Rega
about,
had a
here's what we
summary that he went over every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, if you went to those workshop meetings, that's what we started every meeting with the summary of what we had covered the last meeting, and then what those, when we put it into words, what it was. But again, I get it. You can't always reach everybody. It's always hard to do, as well as you try. But okay, Terry, any thoughts for the group?
No, not tonight.
Kyle, any thoughts?
I think I'm good.
All right, Captain?
Comprehensive plan, is it on the website?
You know what I would do? I just find it easier to get it's me, but I find it easier to get a paper document, that way you can write your notes and everything right on it.
City clerk has one.
Yeah, and get you a copy of it. It's gonna be about 90 pages in duration, and it's exactly as Mr. Sloan had identified. It's a summary of the vision, and then the LDRs are written off of it.
Okay.
So, Mr. Sloan, any thoughts from you, sir?
Sir,
Madam Clerk, any thoughts from you?
I just, I'm thinking during the period, there was a period of time where we didn't have the YouTube channel. So I feel like now that we have the YouTube channel, you had done the summary pages, I feel like we have the availability.
They have access, yeah.
Right.
But recognizing that there are some people that don't have computers and tablets and smartphones and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The idea is a sound one. Have a summary. And I'm hoping that the LDRs aren't gonna have a major rewrite for some time to come, because we put a lot of effort into it, and I know these guys have hundreds of hours in it. It was not a small task. Well, everybody, thank you for your dedication. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your interest, and thank you, Mr. Sloan. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Meeting's over.